What are we going to do as a church? Our souls need to wake up. We need to respond to the gospel of Jesus. He said, go into the world.
We don't want to deal with reality, Christian. We don't even want to deal with reality, even though we've been saved from this place.
I'm calling on you today in the name of Jesus to rise up to the call of God. Christ is coming back soon.
If I start telling people about hell, I might just scare them off. Where are you going to scare them off to? Hell number 2? People stop and think about it. If hell really exists, and it does, I didn't say that Jesus did, then don't you think people need to know about it? Can't you at least give them a fighting chance? Or are you just going to sit there and let them burn?
Unprofessional. We like that unprofessional vibe that only we as unprofessionals can bring. So it doesn't matter if somebody calls on your phone or whatever. If your kid calls, man, take the call on your cell phone. We don't care. This isn't an interview. This is just a conversation that other people can be a part of if they so choose to waste their time with us. It's good to see you, man. I haven't seen you since we were in Dallas. And then Tom and I did your show. How long ago was that? Yeah. A month or two ago?
Yeah. What was it? March, April, somewhere around there? No.
That had to have been your most popular show, I'm sure, right? Is that the one where the view counts just went off the charts?
Well, I tell you what, the responses were good.
Okay. Okay. All right, cool. The responses, I don't know what that means. That could be very negative.
No, it's very positive. They were giving their own feedback on places that you were mentioning in the interview.
Yeah, I remember we kind of flew off the rails on that one. We went pretty dark pretty quick, but hey, it happens. It's a dark world.
Yeah, man. This world that we're living in now it's getting crazy day by day. All of the doggone things happening in politics around the world, in entertainment, it's all converging at one time. And when you look at everything, you're like, wait a minute, how can, like, say for instance, in 2016, we had all the black shootings and whatever by the cops. You're like, how is this all happening at one time in the same year? How? Something's going on. I mean, you could say it's mind control, MK Ultra, this, that, and the other, but since we can't put our hand on it, it's like a thing where something's coordinating. It just not happening by coincidence.
Yeah, you're right. Chuck Missler often, from what I remember, referred to it as a managed agenda. And that was a really good way to describe it. No matter what aspect of society you were looking at today that was being represented in the media, it all seemed to be part of like a single hand, different fingers on the same hand. It was this managed agenda. And, like you though, probably, I mean, everybody's got their own, their own specialties and interests, but it seems like it's virtually impossible for one person to just maintain like visuals on the whole thing all the time. There's just too much going on to really pay attention to all of it. And here recently, I can't even, apart from some shows on Netflix, I usually watch an episode of something every night before I go to bed. I have not turned on television or cable or even been to the movies in the better part of like 6 months. I'm tired of it. I hate the media. And now, let me ask you this, because you're up near Las Vegas, right? So when you go to the gas stations, you might have had this before us, but here recently in my part of Texas, they just installed televisions at all the gas pumps, and it drives me freaking crazy because I can't even get away from the television at the gas pump without gas station TV coming at you live with the word of the day. Do you guys have gas station TV?
Yeah. Every time.
Have you figured out there's a button that you can press though that mutes it? Have you figured that out?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Every time. So first one, it's loud and annoying. And then what you're saying, I don't want to hear anyway. So I just mute.
Well, especially if you're on the phone. Especially if you're on the phone and they're still trying to brainwash you with corporately owned media and you're just trying to pump gas, you just want to. Last time I just wanted to hit the screen, it's like I just want someplace like what I can't even pump gas in peace without the media brainwashing me there too.
Yeah, for real. It's all over the place, man.
Well,
like can't get away from it.
If people haven't figured it out yet, you have a show called Don't Let Them Burn, right?
Yeah.
I can see from the T-shirt and the banner, you're representing the merch quite well. tell people a little bit about your show and how you and your partner Rory got started.
Well, the show is basically, we put it together to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and expose a lot of things in entertainment, but at the same time, we talk about Bible prophecy and world events, technology. We're in fact, right now, I can't seem to get away from technology. It's just, everything is moving so fast. But anyway, I used to rap. So I did all the stuff that comes with hip hop, except I didn't smoke weed or take any drugs, even though it was handed to me countless times. But I had my little run with that for like 13, 14 years. And within that time, I started doing some stuff on the streets, and it wasn't drugs, but it was some other stuff. And, you know, the Lord sent a message to my brother to tell me to put him first. And because back in 1988, that's when I received Christ, and I just backslid, going through the public school system and getting, inundated with culture, And by this time around, I say 2004, I got that message, and then basically something happened to me where I felt like I needed to do something to some people,
Yeah.
And the thing that was coming to my mind the whole time was vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And that kept going through my head. So it was a thing about forgiveness. And I'd watched the movie Joseph at the time. You know what happened to Joseph when he had to go into Egypt and what happened to him, And what his brothers did to him. And when I never read the story before. And when that movie finished, I was in tears, because it was all about forgiveness. And the people that did this thing to me, they were relatives, So it just clicked with me right away. So, after that, I was in a struggle of getting out of the rap game and, doing the stuff I was doing on the streets to make money. And by the end of 2006, all of that ended. And I started watching Pastor Billy Crone's videos on YouTube. I remember how I think I found him by looking up Bible prophecy stuff because I wanted to get into that again, And I came up on the final countdown, and then I came up on a couple other one of his videos. But there's this one, "Will the real church please stand up?" I don't even know if it's available on the internet anymore. But in one part he said, there's people dying and go to hell. Are you going to just sit there and let them burn? And that hit me, And from there, a couple years later, I went to a new church, and the pastor was like, God's telling me to tell you to go start your ministry. Do it now, And I'm thinking, what am I going to call it? And this came back to my mind. Don't let them burn, from that video. And so at the time, Rory, my partner, was the only one that was calling me to check up on me. I was on my face then, no money, broke. And he was the only person from my church that was really checking up on me. But we started to see that we clicked together, reading about the same things, investigating UFOs, everything, And we just clicked like that. And then I said, why don't you just join me? And then finally, 2.5 years ago, we decided to go live. But we did the first show recorded, and then we went on Block Talk, and then, the rest is history, I guess. So we're growing.
That's so it's primarily, is it still primarily a Blog Talk show?
Well, actually, I was going to stop the Blog Talk, really, because we get more attention on YouTube. But we still do the Blog Talk because since it's a podcast, I could branch it out in different areas to iTunes and wherever else through the RSS feed. So we still do it.
Oh, okay. See, because I have, dude, I'm so not technologically savvy at all. Like, I don't know, like we, our YouTube channel streams live to various podcast platforms, but that's only because we've got a friend of the show that is like a computer whiz that said, "Hey, I can set this up for you if you want." And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." And he did it in like 20 minutes. And so now the audio stream from our YouTube videos goes to everything. Now, I don't really know what he did, but we just do our live stream on YouTube every day, and it ends up on Stitcher, it ends up on iTunes, it just ends up everywhere. Like, I guess I heard that you could tell Alexa through Amazon to play Through the Black, and she will. I don't know. Dude, if you set it up, I don't have Alexa. I prefer to, I already carry one of the most sophisticated government spying devices in my pocket at all times. I don't necessarily feel like paying Amazon for another one.
Yeah.
But that's cool, man, because, you know, one thing I've noticed about your show that's really cool is you guys are your media game is solid, like the videos and like the audio that you have and the intros and stuff like that. Like you've done a lot of work and it looks great. Like the show, like Tom and I were not we hit the start button here and then I do a thumbnail, that's it. But I'm like, wow, because you go through and you break up all the clips of your show. You have awesome introductions. You've got great video. Was it when you were in the rap game, did you pick up some media skills like that, or did you just kind of have fun learning it for doing what you're doing now with Don't Let Them Burn?
Well, I was before I got into music, I did illustration. I used to draw comic books, and I wanted to become a comic book artist, actually. And in the middle of all that, got introduced to music, and kind of left that behind in college. I thought that we would make it. We could have actually made it pretty big, but I started to tinker with Photoshop through like 1988, you know, and sorry, not 1988, 1998. And my brother just finished college where I left off, and I started learning from him Photoshop. And I started learning 3D programs at the same time. And then around, I would say, 2000-ish, 2001, 2, I started getting more into Photoshop. I started wanting to create my own business and everything. And then later on, around 2005, 6, 7, that's where I kind of fell off from that. But right before that, 2006, I was delving into, 2005, 2006, I was delving into mixing audio for the group. So I got into all the computer parts of, production and stuff like that. And I started getting good at it. But when 2006 came, all that, I threw it to the side, you know? And we even did, because I was doing a magazine while doing a mixtape, you know?
Yeah.
And that was about to take off. Sony was right behind us, about to sponsor us, and the NFL was about to sponsor us. But no one still knew about this because the partner I had, she had a good mouth game, you know? And she was bringing in a whole bunch of support. But I was trying to get out. I didn't want to promote all this junk anymore, you know? And I was getting convicted about it. So that's where all the artistry lies. And so I started to make my own business doing graphic design around 2011, 12 somewhere. And from there, I came back into doing ministry work and then used it for that. So that's where all that talent comes from, the past, and then doing my own business. And I said, you know what? A lot of Christian movies, a lot of Christian shows don't have the top-notch graphics like Fox, CNN, Hollywood. I said, I don't want to look basic. I want to look like I'm actually spending money on this stuff, you know? And so that, because it's like, look, I'm a consumer. If I go into a Best Buy or something to pick up a CD, I'm going to be like, if this is ugly, I'm not buying it.
Hmm.
The next CD cover might have good artwork. It might suck, but I'm going to buy it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I want you to see our stuff and think good content just from the artwork. And when you dig into our content, it's a lot of content, man. It's so much content that sometimes I go back to stuff we did last year, the year before. I'm like, whoa, this stuff, I don't remember this stuff. You know, you can't retain it all. But go ahead.
Well, no, that's a good point, though. I mean, I've talked to Richard Shaw about that many times, about his approach with the Watchers films that, he did with L.A. Marzulli. And that was, Richard would always make the arguments like this has to be like this has to be like studio quality, like Hollywood quality, and they would do everything that they could. And they weren't necessarily able to get that on the budget that they had for the Watchers films, but that was very important, was to come as close as possible. And, Rob Skiba has the same philosophy with the Seed Project. He doesn't want to produce, that was the number one thing that really stunk about, like Kirk Cameron's like Left Behind films. It's like, it's a great concept, you know. I know there's fixing to be a debate breakout someplace on YouTube or Facebook. I'm not taking a rapture position here or anything. I'm just saying, like, you know, Kirk Cameron's idea was to present the gospel, and he did it in, you know, they used the Left Behind series as a way to do that with those movies, but those movies were terrible, man. I mean, they were so terrible, at least as far as I'm concerned, that they were actually good, and that they were so bad they provided comedy. And they've kind of become a joke. They've kind of become a joke to, you know, the secular world, that the remake had Nicolas Cage in it. It was like, it wasn't that good either. But, you know, I mean, it seems like Christian stuff is just, yeah, you're right, dude. It just doesn't seem to meet quality. But I don't know. That's why, like you know, you're important. You get out there because your stuff looks good. I'm telling you, dude, it looks really good. It looks.
Thank you.
But something else I was remembering when we were in Dallas together, we were talking about, I think you and I were talking about comic books a lot. And that's one of the things that interested me about you was, you know, all the topics that you cover, UFOs and Nephilim and, you know, modern day, you know, I'm like on your show, we talked about satanic super soldiers. You know, you just seem to be interested in all of it, except for Bigfoot. I remember you weren't a big fan of Bigfoot. We need to get you to do a Bigfoot show, you know, for the Don't Let Them Burn crowd. But Tom and I haven't even done a Bigfoot show yet, but we want to. That'd be a fun one. But anyway, yeah, comic books and mythology. You were talking about how a lot of our, you know, superheroes and stuff were essentially demigods, but had their roots in mythology that tie back into the Nephilim. And, you know, I was fairly familiar with that concept, but where I kind of lack was I've never been into comic books. And so I've never looked at the origin stories or really anything other than the basic, shallow, superficial stuff you get from the movie when you go see it. So what have you, I mean, you said you were going to be a comic book artist. Do you still follow changes in comic book storylines and you know, just the whole lore and history and things that they're still creating, or is that kind of in the past?
It's in the past, but I still follow a little smidgen, just because the whole comic book industry is taken off to another level now. You know, there are a lot of flops, like Daredevil, Elektra, stuff like that. So, you know, the first Hulk by Ang Lee, those weren't box office success, you know?
Yeah. And
when Marvel started hitting a stride after the Incredible Hulk, then Iron Man, and, you know, what came after that, I started paying attention. And then, you know, Man of Steel came out. I said to my brother, I said, you know what? I think these comic book movies are to bring in a new age, the age of Aquarius. And he said, no, man, you're crazy, right? So I'm like, I feel like I'm right, but I couldn't put my hand on it. And then I read Christopher Nolan's book. He's not a Christian. He's a Buddhist. And he is called Our Gods Wear Spandex. And he had a page in there on Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley had his encounter with the first god, Superman or something, right? And Horus. And so through some channeling events, he was basically told that, you know, this is going to be the age of the age of the new age would bring in the age of the Superman, you know? And I was like, boom, it's right there. This is it right here. I have proof, you know? And so going backwards a little bit, what are all the superheroes telling you? That you can become gods through genetics, you know, you could be gods through some sort of ritual of the occult. They're gods coming from another planet, or will become a god when they grow up on this planet, or they're going to come and mate with women, Earth women, or vice versa. The alien woman will mate with the Earth man. It's all sorts of different scenarios to this thing. But what I see is they're not after you and me. You know, we're fodder. They're after the children. Because it's the children that I want to be Superman. I want to be Spider-Man. And whoever else. And, you know, let me not go ahead of myself. But if you look at Superman is like the idea that Nietzsche had, you know? the Ubermensch. And well, that's what Superman means, right? And then the S on his chest was originally a snake or a dragon, you could say, right? So in Master, he says this is the symbol for peace. In the occult, they think that Lucifer is the good guy, right? And so what was, in Man of Steel, what was Superman's job through his genealogy? It was to come to Earth, seed with a human woman, and create a super race that would take over the planet, and humans would be their slaves, or their.
That was part of the original storyline. That was the goal, was to come and. Huh.
Yeah.
See, because I've seen the movies. I just thought it was like the planet was whatever planet he was on, it was going to blow up. Was it Kolob? Is that what it was called? The planet Kolob or something, or is that Mormon theology? I can't remember. I can't. Oh, Krypton. Oh, okay, yeah. Sometimes I get all my mythological stories confused, including the history of Mormonism. Mormonism should probably be a comic book. That would be interesting. They've got similar backstory. Krypton. Yeah, I feel stupid right now. Everyone's laughing at me. But I guess my understanding was that the planet was fixing to blow up, or at least that's what happened in the Russell Crowe version or whatever. And they shipped him off, and he was the sole survivor. But it was about seeding, like actually mating with Earth women and creating creating progeny to pass on Krypton genes. Is that?
Yeah. Create a bunch of hybrids.
Interesting.
A whole bunch of hybrids. Where have you heard that before?
Yeah. Yeah.
Genesis.
Genesis.
Yeah. And then Krypton. What is a crypt? It's a secret. It's a secret place. His father's name is Jor-El. El, Lord, or whatever, however you want to translate it. Is God basically. And then he's the son of God, but he's not the son of God from the Bible. He's basically the Antichrist. And I'm not telling anyone out there you can't watch a Superman movie. That's up to you. But I'm telling you what it really means.
Sure. I like going to those movies. I mean, I like watching them too. I mean, breaking it down is important.
The more you go into comic book lore, the more occult you will find. The more you start, even in video games, I found out some stuff this week. It's just like nuts. But you look at Green Lantern. He has to take an oath to this magical box that sounds just like an oath that a Mason would take. I can't remember the oath right now. But you look that up, you see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You look at Flash. Flash is Hermes or Mercury. He's a god of speed and he's a messenger of the gods. In the TV show, he's the Speed Force. He uses the Speed Force, and that within that Speed Force are beings that seem like gods. You can find that in the TV show. You can find that in the comics. Nothing new. It's been there the whole time. It's just that a lot of us aren't in the comics. Church folks don't care. They don't understand the culture, so it's just a comic book, But if you look at the history of comic books, it's always been an issue with what they're putting in there. Comic books got banned before. They came back. You have the Silver Age. You got the Golden Age of comics. There was some super occult stuff in comics that were getting blown up back in the 40s, 60s, those times. And then some of it got kind of like quelled a little bit. They start putting ratings on the comic books, just like I have PG and rated R and everything like that. And when you start seeing stuff emerging into where it's coming now, you go from the 80s to the 90s. They got hypersexual, hyper occult, genetics, and all of this stuff. It comes from all the ideas that have been passed down through theosophy, through science fiction, which those guys were connected to theosophy and Aleister Crowley, New Age, a whole sorts of stuff. Egyptology, Hinduism, Buddhism. Jack Kirby, his whole foundation was the occult, And I've learned that from that book too. but I'm learning other places also. You know.
Who's that you're talking about? Jack who?
Jack Kirby. He started out doing characters for DC and Marvel and DC. He worked for both. He created stuff like, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to get it wrong. I know people rag on me on it, but he created the new gods, the old gods. So they had the old gods, and he created the new gods, and he created other characters from there.
Oh,
So,
you're reminding me of something. That new American Gods series that's on Stars that I haven't watched. Whoever wrote that book originally, when I did his Wikipedia, he had a background in comic books. Do you remember what his name was?
I can't remember his name. I can look it up, but that's
that adds to what you're saying, because that guy, the whole storyline of which I haven't seen an episode. I just read this stuff when I was researching it, but it was about new gods coming in and taking over the places of the old gods, which that ties in directly to what you're saying. But that guy had a background in comic books, and he has an interest in the occult. I know that because I've spent about an hour just looking at what he had to say on the internet.
Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, he wrote the book. But same storyline with that guy is what you're talking about with Jack or whatever. This theme of old gods and new gods, and he had a background in comic books, so that's interesting.
Yeah. In fact, all right. Let me touch this first. I watched one episode, just one, and there's a scene in there where a lady lures a guy off the internet to come and meet with her in a bar. And it turns out that she likes the way he looks. He's Caucasian, she's black, and then she brings him to the back, and there's a scarlet room with candles and a bed, and she starts seducing him into the bed, and I had to watch a show like this. It was that graphic. It was like porn, literally. You can see breasts and everything, and it basically what she wanted from him was worship. As he's having sex with her, he's worshiping her, and then he has to worship her more vigorously, and then she sucks him into her female parts. Yeah, it's crazy, but it's all about this pagan. I mean, from the opening of the TV show, you know what it's about. It's a bunch of idols stacked up on a totem pole, and then it reads American Gods. So. I don't think Christians should be watching this. This is just straight up pagan. I mean, I don't care if people disagree. I believe the Spirit of God doesn't want you to put that before your eyes. This is serious business. And then, Babylon 5?
Yeah, I own all 5 seasons.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because that guy was into comic books. He actually wrote and produced comic books, I think, for Marvel before he got into Babylon 5. So a lot of stuff go back to this whole. In fact, there's a lot of movies that are coming out that people don't realize are directly tied to comic books. A TV series called The Walking Dead.
Yeah, that's true. That was a comic book first. Yeah.
Preacher. Another one called Lucifer. You know about that one?
Yeah, I saw the 5 minutes of the first episode one day. I didn't know that was a comic book.
Yeah.
What else?
What's that one called with oh man, it was a gangster film. I can't remember right now. Can't remember. There's 2 gangster films that came out. One with what's the guy from Captain? I can't remember the doggone guy's name. He's pretty famous too, man. All right, you heard of that new McDonald's movie?
Gangster Squad? Is that it? Gangster Squad?
No. It's called no, not that one.
That was a good movie, man.
Michael Keaton starred in it. It was Road to Perdition. Road to Perdition.
That was a comic book?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yes. And then the guy that played the King in Lord of the Rings, Viggo Mortensen, I think is his name. He played in a comic book where he was an outlaw. Well, secretly, his wife didn't know anything about him. But a guy shows up at his house, and all hell breaks loose. And then, she finds out that he is an ex-gangster. Can't remember the name of the movie, but it was received.
Oh, I do. I remember that one. No, I remember that one. I don't remember what it was called, but that came out quite a while ago.
Right. That was a comic book. You know. So what Hollywood is doing, they're recycling a lot of stuff, but to get fresh material, they're going to the comic books. Now, Disney bought out. Well, they have a high share. They bought out Marvel. Okay. So, and Lucasfilm, as you know.
Oh, dude, I gotta say this. Joshua Poor in the comments, he brought up Howard the Duck, this girl dating the Duck Man. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's true. And
the old gods coming out of deep space and dating a woman, the Duck Man, the Duck God.
Yeah, it's true.
Howard the Duck.
It's true. Hey, in the latest Guardians of the Galaxy, I think in one of the end credit scenes, they show Howard drinking some sort of liquor, flirting with a girl.
Yeah.
Hey.
Maybe a little ambrosia, a little nectar of the gods.
Yeah. So, I want to kind of like touch different topics, but let's go back to the Force, right? So in Star Wars, you have the Force, and for anybody that's thinking of what it really means, think of it like this: the Force is the fusion of opposites. It's the dark and the light, the yin and the yang, the upside down, those sort of concepts. In between that, you have the balance, right? And this comes straight out of Eastern mysticism.
Yeah.
And so you have the Jedi, you have, and the opposite side, which they have different names. So it's not really about the dark side defeating the light side or the light side defeating the dark side. You hear it all the time. It's about the one that could bring balance to the Force. What is the Force?
Force, that's good.
It's sort of like this power in the universe that guides man, so to speak, right? And if you can attain equilibrium with each side, you have perfection.
Well, George Lucas was, from my memory, I believe he was a self-proclaimed pantheist. And when you look at pantheism, it's that you're kind of, I don't remember all the minute details of pantheism, but essentially it was that the everything is one in the universe, and it kind of becomes this thing, which is what the Force was. It was this arbitrary thing that no one could really define, but it just everybody subscribed to it. So you had this universe worship in pantheism there, but you also had Crowley once again with Star Wars, who had, which goes back to Crowley, just like you were talking about, that was pushing this idea of the conquering child. Long story short, children being able to experience anything that they wanted to in that same manner, getting rid of light, getting rid of dark. But I'm saying, like, it was that do as thou wilt, just chase whatever experiences are going to make you happy. But I remember in The Crown of Conquering Child, it seemed like I read a paper one time where they actually brought up the Force as the blending of the light and the dark, eradicating evil and good, saying there is no such thing. There just simply is being, and it was it's a terrifying sense of morality to have if you're trying to move through life,
Exactly. But remember, most of this comes from Eastern mysticism, the Buddhists. All right, you got Hinduism first, then you got an offshoot, which is Buddhism, Taoism, Shintoism, and all the other isms that come after it, which all of them go into martial arts. But I'm going to leave that alone for now, right? So think about Lord of the Rings, right? You have Gandalf. He is a gray warlock. He's not dark, he's not light, and he's
Gandalf.
Mild.
You're talking about Gandalf.
Gandalf, yeah.
Okay.
And so when he dies, he gets enlightenment. He gets his third eye open, basically, right? And he comes back as a white wizard. So now he's a part of the light side. He's a white witch. They say white witches are good, black witches are bad. It's the same concept in witchcraft. A universe, earth worship, all this stuff goes together, right? Now, you take that, and we talked about the Flash earlier, right? Now, think about stuff, cartoons like Oh, what's the one called with these guys, Goku and all them?
Oh, Dragon Ball Z,
Dragon
bruh.
Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. You think about Dragon Ball Z, you think about Street Fighter. Remember Street Fighter had Dalsim?
They had who? Say that again. What was the
Dalsim.
name?
Dalsim, the Indian guy with the skulls around his neck.
I don't remember that. I wasn't a huge Street Fighter.
Okay,
I had it.
well, I'm just bringing it somewhere.
But he was an Indian character.
Right, and he would sit in the yoga pose, and he would shoot yoga flame, yoga fire.
I do remember that now. I remember that.
Okay. Then you have Ken and Ryu, which would use the chi to shoot out bursts of energy. That's the force. The yoga, you use the same thing. It's the martial arts. I've watched enough Christian testimonies to know that all martial arts go back to the same concept of the force that lives within us, within trees, within dogs, cats, rats, bats, and my spoon. Okay, so they literally think everything is made up of this force.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you see the same concept going across different genres, but it all means the same thing. In fact, in Guardians of the Galaxy, right, the latest one, Volume 2, the father, Ego the Living Planet, he's telling Star-Lord about how he's a demigod, that's his father. And he has something in him that no one else has. But in order to get this thing to be perfect, and for him and both of them to rule the universe, he has to harness the light from the planet. This light is a force. It's the same thing. And he touches him on his third eye, boom, and opens him up, and he sees eternity. Or maybe some are speculating that it's the being eternity, the one of the gods in the pantheon, right? That makes up the entire universe. It's like we're living inside of a being. Okay? Same concept.
It's just the same. It's the same occultic. It was just Gnosticism packaged and repackaged over and over and over again. That's over and over and over again and forced down our throats in the form of media.
Listen, Neo in the Matrix.
The new man. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a new man. He's also the chosen one, and people think that he's a figure of Jesus Christ. But the person that was in the white suit, the architect, that was literally God. So Neo is the Antichrist, but he uses the Force to defeat God.
Yeah, it's just, you're right. I remember hearing lots of people talk about the Matrix. They were analyzing it when it first came out, and even the way they depicted Neo when he was being assimilated. Or whatever he was dead or whatever. The Matrix was carrying him off. He was in that like Christ on the cross kind of pose. Do you remember that? Yeah. And people were like, "Yeah, that's a reference to Christ." But in my memory, and I could be totally wrong about this as I'm thinking about it, the vantage point that you had, the way they shot that, he would have been upside down on the cross. The way that they were taking him off, I don't remember seeing him upright. I remember it seeing from his head. His feet were pointed this way. I think I could be wrong. I don't remember.
No, they pulled him out right side up. That's what I remember. That's what my mind's giving me right now.
Okay.
But since you went there with the cross position, you have Superman in Man of Steel, when he breaks out of the ship that Zod had up there, he went out in the cross position. Now a lot of people think that the people that made Superman were Christians. No, they were into some stuff too, and they were Jews. But they made him to be the Messiah figure, but it ain't our Messiah. I'm telling you that. It's not. Wonder Woman, the new movie that came out. Now, she's a demigod, right? And depending on where you go, you'll find different origins. But the origin that's being stuck to right now, she's made out of clay, and Zeus gave her power to be who he created her to be, which in this movie is a god killer, right? And her brother is Ares, the Lord of War. I mean, the god of war. And so they have a battle in the end of the movie, and she takes the bolts of Zeus, because the bracelets help her to. In different incarnations, the bracelets do different things, but in this one, is to harness the power of Zeus, the lightning, to, destroy whatever foes that she's fighting, and she uses that in the movie to kill Ares.
That's what's interesting. I just recently read Derek Gilbert's book, The Great Inception, and Derek makes the case, I believe, this is from memory, which my memory is not perfect, but I believe he makes the case that Zeus was Baal, and that Baal's primary weapon is one of his identities, I guess, or one of his titles was that of a storm god. And so he utilized lightning as a weapon, which is Zeus, the figure of Zeus came from Baal. So it's interesting that in this, because I haven't seen Wonder Woman yet either, I'm really behind on my movies. You're saying that Zeus's primary weapon in Wonder Woman was a lightning. I mean, it was a lightning weapon. Zeus was the father of Wonder Woman, and he used lightning in the movie.
Yeah.
And it goes right back to Baal, Baal and El and the council. Well, I mean, because Baal, according to the mythology, was over the 70. There was a council of El had 70 members, which goes right back to the whole divine council situation that we see in the Psalms 82 and 83.
Yeah.
And so it's just the whole history and mythology just stays true even in these movies.
Yeah. Listen, it's so deep. You're gonna hardly find a lot of characters that aren't based off of some god. There's some that aren't at all, right? Like Archie, but
that we know of. What if? Because Archie's not done yet. What if Archie is the Antichrist? I feel like that would be a story.
I can't put anything past that. You're exactly right, because every time I dig, it's always something. Now let's talk about a villain. The villain, Lex Luthor. He is Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I've read about this before too. And look how in Batman versus Superman, he was just blaspheming all over the place. It matches the character. What did Crowley do? Blaspheme, desecrate, pluck the eye out of Jesus, all this other stuff that he wanted to do just to go against Christianity. Crowley basically wanted to follow after the devil. And you see a character.
He called himself the wickedest man on earth. He referred to himself as the wickedest man on earth, and he wanted to be Satan's right hand man. He wanted to be the Antichrist.
Yeah, exactly.
He wanted to be from a young age.
Yeah, and Alan Moore, he's a comic book writer too, and people have taken his books to make films. So one of his books is V for Vendetta. There's a caricature of Aleister Crowley in that comic book. Okay? Another one is Watchmen. If people don't understand how satanic Watchmen is, look behind the veneer. That one's just in your face. Yeah, it's all about the Antichrist. It's all about the man becoming God. That blue dude.
Yeah.
Look at the circle with the dot on his head. You know how satanic that is. And even some of the quote unquote villains in the movie. The one I can't remember his name right now. He's kind of dressed like an Egyptian, but then he did some other books too. He wrote a couple Batman novels, and then you have Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison, in an interview, he basically told a story about smoking a little hash, and then the beings, the spirits came to visit him, and they supposedly took him up to the star system, can't remember the name of it right now, with the 3 stars or whatever. And he said it was real. And what they told him was to take what they're telling him and put what they're telling him in the comic books. So in the Bible, it talks about doctrines of demons. These people, I can't, every time I go into either technology or comic books or something, it's always some connection to the occult world. You got from the creator of NASA, Warner von Braun, contacting demons.
Well, that Jack Parsons, because Jack Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley served in the Ordo Templi Orientis together out of Los Angeles, from what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley were responsible for practicing sex magic together. And in that sex magic, they had actually wanted to produce a moonchild where they would give the whore of Babylon a body. And Jack Parsons went on to work with Werner von Braun in the creation of NASA. They were developing. I believe Jack Parsons was interested in solid rocket fuel, and I believe Werner von Braun was interested in liquid rocket fuel, and they ended up creating a booster engine that had a combination of both. But they founded JPL in Devil's Canyon, of all places. I mean, NASA's very core roots were tied to Aleister Crowley in a very significant way. The founder was his protege. They had sex together trying to bring spirits through.
Nasty, man.
I know, dude. I know. And then when you just track NASA's history from that point, it's just the entire foundation of NASA was built on sorcerers and magicians. I mean, it was just, dude.
You think about this, right? Why can't we shake these things? Why can't we shake the old gods? We're living in a fallen world. Lucifer is basically the king of this world, and his minions are all around, manifesting themselves as something. You go into Haiti, you got voodoo. You go into Jamaica, you got Obia. You go into Cuba or Puerto Rico or Mexico, you got Santeria. It's all over the place.
Palamambe, Brujeria.
Babalao. It's all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm mentioning that because when you look at video games and entertainment and books and stuff, you'll always find, what you can call deviants that are into these niches that create content for us to devour. Now, I don't believe all of them are saying, well, I want you all to worship the devil, but they're creating what's coming out of their heart. The Bible says out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? Mm-hmm. And so if I go and make a song about a woman that I love, I'm going to be pouring my heart out in that song, especially when I perform it, right? And when I create something, I'm going to create it out of whatever is in my heart,
You make a point. Something that's interesting to me here recently is I've been looking at arches in particular, mainly because of Chad Schaefer's book. But I was thinking about this the other day because as I read these people's books, my just like everybody else, my mind gets to rolling. And I make connections in my own head. But I kind of see the modern media as like today, like the secular world, like technologically upgraded secular world's version of iconography, because, the objects that were constructed that contained artwork, they were created in such a way that there was information encoded in them, and those objects spoke to people when they viewed them. There was a message that was being given through those objects. Today, culture is different in that you could still have that in Masonic architecture and Enochian architecture. I mean, still to this day, you have magicians that are designing buildings. Like, you can still see that if you know what you're looking for. But it seems like we're not constructing magnificent pieces of art anymore that are conveying a message. It's now movies and internet content, whatever that may be, in comic books, that it seems to be acting as sort of the iconography of old. It's a modern version of iconography, and that those are pieces of art in and of themselves that have a message that is being spoken to through them, to us.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let me refer you to someplace first. There's a documentary out there called Hollywood Unmasked, #1 and #2. It's a very good documentary, well done, and it gives the history of Hollywood from the good to the bad. And so they had a thing called a zeotrope, and it's basically a little box or whatever, a little cylinder where they cut out shapes, and they would have a light under it, and then it'll spin around. Circuses would use it. Magicians would use it, where they put demons on it or whatever to scare people. And that's the start of the moving picture. And then Hollywood takes that and make moving pictures, silent films and whatever. But a lot of these people were into weird stuff, man. You know, but back then, you'd find a couple stories in the tabloids or whatever, but it was really secret, just like homosexual was secret. You can't talk about that. You'll get arrested, you know. But today, everything is open. From you know, Disney has trained everyone to accept witchcraft, you know. And so today we see it on TV. It's like nothing. What's okay? He's using magic. So what? What does the Bible talk about it though? We don't practice those things. We don't, you know, get involved or participate or encourage anyone to do that stuff, right? And
yeah.
Everything, you know, the movies and the TV shows coming out nowadays. Now, think about this, right? Our TV shows have gotten so bad, whether it's cable or regular TV, that it's just like a rated R movie from the 80s and 90s. Some of it might not have cursing, and some of it does. But the amount of nudity that's coming out now, it's just immense. In fact, in the Leftovers series, now I don't watch a lot of these shows. I watch some to do some research, but I really could care less. The Leftovers.
Sure, Chris, research. No.
Yeah, I know. You know what? Hey, I'll be honest with you. Some shows you start to watch and you start to like it. You know, like when I started watching Fringe, I was like, I'm gonna see, because I was like, this stuff is demonic. Let me see this stuff. Boom, boom, boom. All right, dang, this is a good show. You know?
Yeah, you get sucked into it.
It was really good, yeah. But you know, the whole premise is on some occult stuff. So anyway, you have the Leftovers, and they had a yacht scene. It was a 200 people orgy that they filmed somewhere out in the sea. They literally.
I saw an article on that, dude. Crazy. Go ahead. I don't want to keep talking.
Yeah, but they have another show. I can't remember the name of the show right now, but where they filmed one of the most graphic homosexual scene ever put on TV, ever. So we're just getting worse. In other words, when no one's in uproar. You know, 20 years ago, it'd be like, what? No, we gotta call our people, ban this stuff. I remember when they had the writer's strike around. This is when Smallville was still on TV, and they had a huge writer's strike. And what the TV studio started doing was taking in scripts that they wouldn't put on TV before. It would get rejected. And one of them was called, I think, The Roses or something. It was some gangster show, and there was an F-bomb in it. This is on NBC. And I was like, what? But then it got yanked. This was in the early 2000s somewhere. But now everything is just everywhere. Mm. You can say, do anything. The children in the cartoons, oh my gosh, cartoons, man. They're worse today than ever before. You know, Tom and Jerry had the violence, and Scooby-Doo had the occult stuff in it. And some of Tom and Jerry had that too. You just got to see the episode. So anyway, there was this one cartoon. I don't know if it's Dexter's Lab or one of them, but the young lady, she just came up in a puff of smoke and said, "Do what thou wilt is the whole of the law," and holding up the devil hand sign. Yeah.
That was like you talking about Dexter, like on Cartoon Network Dexter, the little genius Dexter?
I can't remember if it's that one, but it's a woman, a little girl that's in that show. She puff of smoke. "Do what thou wilt is the whole of the law."
Oh my goodness, she's quoting Thelema. Yeah, I mean, it's not so. Well, you brought up Disney a minute ago, and something I remembered I haven't thought of in a while. I don't know that I could defend this. I've just heard it. Jamie Hanshaw did these books called Weird Stuff. These like magazine style books called Weird Stuff, where she breaks down like Disney and this whole princess thing that Disney pushes, which is actually really creepy. But she made a point about Disney that I guess I had never heard before, and that's this occultic theme of the death of the mother, and how in all of the Disney movies it always starts with at least the death of the mother, if not the death of both the mother and the father. It seems like it's changed a little bit over the years, but you always have the death of the parents. And for the longest time, people were coming out and saying, well, because Walt Disney had lost his mother at a young age, they incorporated that into Disney movies. But I feel like from memory, and I could be wrong. If I'm wrong about this, or someone that knows her, or she ends up listening, I'm sorry if I butchered your work. People need to go read Weird Stuff. They were really cool. that it was an occultic theme. You know, nobody really knows a lot about Walt Disney. I mean, really, that dude's history is shrouded, and it looks like he was tied in with a lot of occultic Nazis. I mean, Werner von Braun, who we already talked about, also helped design Disney World. You know what I'm saying? He was actively involved in designing and engineering rides and stuff. So it would be no stretch of the imagination to link Walt Disney's ideology to occult themes, which we see translated into all the, not just with the presentation of magic, but even with sort of this ritual, so to speak, at the beginning of each movie that involved the death of the mother, you know? So I find that really interesting and deeper, you know?
Well, he was also involved with Huxley, and Huxley, well, they were brothers, but, you know.
You're talking about Aldous Huxley?
Yeah. Doors of Perception, that's straight up occult.
Yeah.
You know, so
did he also write Fire in the Minds of Men? Was that Huxley? I don't know either.
It has to be the same one. It has to be, because this guy they were in a think tank back then.
Wasn't that Clinton? That was Bill Clinton's mentor, wasn't it? Aldous Huxley? I'm not sure about Clinton. Oh, I gotta look that up, dude. Maybe I'm.
Yeah. So now, think about what you just said about the child always losing the mother, at least, or both parents. It's not just encapsulated in Disney. It's also in a lot of the comic books. Spider-Man loses his mother and father, and then loses an uncle. Okay. I think there are 5 storylines that movies and some books that all use to propel their stories further. And it's always about the mentor dying or the parents dying to push that hero further into their destiny, right? So you have Batman, both his parents die, you know. You have, well, Thor his parents eventually die, but, you know, they all resurrect or whatever. So I can't really put that in there. You have Iron Man, his mother dies. Same thing. You know, I can go on and on, but it's not just Disney. One person said in a video one time that it's to kind of like get kids to think that they could do it without their parents. You know, I don't know if that's, you know, the whole psychological breakdown of it.
Right.
That's one of the things. So that it's a good point though, because if you look at Spider-Man, he goes out and does what he wants, and he lies to his aunt. You know, hey, that's another. Let me bring that up, because I haven't even brought this up on my show. These heroes that we're looking up to, they continually lie. Superman and his ulterior identity with the glasses or whatever, continuously lying to Lois Lane and everybody else. Same thing with Flash, and on and on and on. Always lying. Why is that? Why is lying being promoted so much? Because we think it's okay because, hey, well, they have to hide their identity. We can't let the cops find out and whoever and the enemies find out, or they'll kill the whole family. There's always some reasoning behind it, but it's still lying. You know, and it's being promoted heavily.
Yeah, that's it's really crazy because I think I'm wrong. I think I'm wrong about Aldous Huxley. I can't remember. Bill Clinton came out and talked about his mentor one time. I was trying to find it really quick on Google. I was having problems. Okay. Whoever, maybe it was Fulbright, whoever went on to create the Rhodes Scholars, I think was who he claimed was his mentor. I don't think Aldous Huxley wrote Fire in the Minds of Men, but he did, you know, he did write Brave New World, right? Did you ever read Brave New World?
I haven't got to it yet.
You can actually, I don't know if you got Spotify or something, but they've, for a while they had books on Spotify, some of the old books that don't have any copyrights or anything. You can actually listen to an abridged version that was read by Aldous Huxley himself. And that was kind of cool because it was this whole concept of being, see, once again, like, okay, for instance, like in the X-Men, right? You have different ratings for mutants, right? You had, at least from my memory of the movies, like Magneto was a class 5, right? And so was Phoenix. I think she was a class 5. Everybody else kind of had these different ratings. And depending on how powerful they were, well, in Brave New World, you were graded based on what you were designed to be in society. So that nobody really had sex anymore. You were you could have sex, but no one had sex to procreate, right? And everybody shared everybody. So nobody was monogamous. It was a polyamorous society, and you were created in a test tube, and they created you for a specific purpose, and then you were given a letter as far as your rank of intelligence. They had a bunch of D's that were just like mentally retarded grunts that just ran shovels, so to speak. But then you had your B minuses, your A's, your A pluses, I think, if I remember correctly. And it really affected your status. But it was interesting the way that you were created in Brave New World, and the way that you were graded. You were given positions of authority based on what they designed for. And it was a story of people that lived apart from this sort of new society, this Brave New World, so to speak, that were still living life like we do, and it was this weird position where someone got stranded there. And I don't remember the whole story. It's been years since I read it, but you kind of see some of the themes that Aldous Huxley incorporated into things like A Brave New World, even in some of these newer stories, like some of the comic books you're talking about. So that's just even more to that,
Well, yeah. Well, even in what you just said, you go back to Man of Steel again, and on Krypton, they had a Genesis chamber, and this is where they would grow the babies, and assign them appropriately to the coding of their DNA. You're going to be a soldier, a scientist, a politician, and on and on. Same concept, and that's what our world is coming to. If you look at, anyone can type this in right now, look up genetically modified babies, look up designer babies in any search engine, and you see where our world is going.
We had the first baby born that legally had 3 parents. Exactly. You remember that?
Last year. Yeah. And I think that was in Mexico, right?
I don't know where it was.
Yeah, well, they did that. So, but the genetics is going crazy right now, okay? I just got some information. The information is so good, I can't even release it until that person releases it, okay? You talk about something that's going to definitely lead up to the mark of the beast, and I'm not being sensational. It's some real hardcore tech. And I'm not talking about just machinery. I'm talking about dealing with DNA, but I can't say no more, okay? Until that person releases it themselves. You got CRISPR technology, which people are saying it's not perfect yet and blah, blah, blah. But listen, it's a gigantic leap forward, quantum leap, in fact. There's another thing that's going on where they want to take cells from a man or another man or that same man and make a baby out of it. Or take the cells from a woman and another woman or that same woman and make a baby out of it. It's the same concept you're talking about, where we don't procreate, but we can go around and screw anybody we want to. It's the same concept. In Fringe, they had these people, they were akin to the Watchers. I can't remember their name right now. Oh my gosh. But anyway, people that watch that show know what I'm talking about. The Observers.
Yeah, the Observers.
Yeah. And they give you a glimpse into the future where they made this child, which they brought through time, which basically you call him the chosen one, whatever, They created him. He was a master genetic creation, but there was an anomaly in him that made him more powerful than all of the tech-infused observers. There were no women there. None. Not one. Okay? Now, there are other shows that show a future just like that, and there are women there. But it's all about genetics and fusing with tech.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is it's an interesting point. You talk about this world of men with no women, but then you look at this, the Amazonian concept in Wonder Woman, where it's all women and no men. Something that my friend Allie told me about the other day, I did not know this because I don't know much about comic books, is that the man that wrote the storyline of Wonder Woman, his lover was Margaret Sanger's niece. Now that was interesting too.
Right, and that's okay. Let's go there.
So I don't know anything about that. So, but you got one of these pioneers of the modern day eugenics movement, whose niece is making love to the creator of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, he liked her. That's right. It's correct. That's the lover's niece, and he liked her, so he fashioned Wonder Woman off of her because she was a hardcore feminist, into the occult, and the founder of the Negro Project or Planned Parenthood or whatever name they're going to give it, And also, he was in an open relationship, I think an open marriage with two women. And one of them, I think, wore bracelets all the time, if I'm not wrong, right? And also, he was credited for being one of the people that invented the lie detector. Some people question that, but that's what he claimed, okay? So there's where you get the magic lasso, which always compels you to tell the truth. So basically,
that's cool. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So Wonder Woman is basically, and of course, add on top of that the demigod issue. Oh, let me give another tidbit. You got Semiramis, Nimrod, and Tammuz. You got Osiris, Horus, and what's the third one? Osiris, Horus, and this is Egyptian. Come on, I know you know this.
Osiris, Horus, and we're talking about Isis?
Isis, right?
Nailed it.
Now, so Wonder Woman is also Semiramis. She's also Isis. She's also Columbia. She's also Diana, because that's her name, Princess Diana. Yeah. Diana is linked to the moon god, the hunter goddess, and she has a moon crown on her head. Also links back to Islam, but we can leave that over there, right? So she is a manifestation of Margaret Sanger and an old pagan deity. And just to bring back the whole Trinity sort of thing going on here, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman are called the Trinity.
Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman are the comic. But who refers to him as the Trinity? Is like
it's in the comic books.
Okay.
And also, Superman is the sun god. Where does he get his power?
The sun. Yeah.
The only place he gets his power, the sun. So he's Horus. You see, you can go all over the place with this stuff. Because
it's super fascinating.
Yeah, if you know the information, you can pick it apart, Batman, on the other hand, I haven't figured him out yet. But the one thing I can say about him is he's a spirit of vengeance, right? Where else do you see the spirit of vengeance?
What, you mean like in movies? Or
comic books.
Like the Punisher, that's one of them.
That's one.
I'm trying to think, like, if I rack my brain.
There's one really, really important. I don't know if you're gonna get it or not.
Hold on, give me a clue, because I want to guess.
Blaze. That's a really good clue for you.
Blaze?
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking through all the comics, because I'm thinking like Green Lantern, no. Flash, no. Superman, no. Spider-Man. Well, Spider-Man, he wasn't out for vengeance, even though his aunt Uncle Ben died. That wouldn't have been it. I don't know. Just tell me.
Ghost Rider.
Oh, I never would have gotten it. Never in a million years. I don't know anything about Ghost Rider at all, other than Nicolas Cage played him.
Yeah, sometimes what they'll do is they'll take the idea and make it into a character that seems innocent, like Batman. But Batman, he doesn't care about anybody, really. He doesn't. He's all about himself and his mother's death and vengeance. Vengeance, vengeance, vengeance. Ghost Rider is the epitome of the spirit of vengeance. He's a demon from the underworld that came and made a deal with Johnny Blaze and the other whatever other Ghost Rider there is to for him to inhabit his body to carry out vengeance.
You know, Ghost Rider. Then it reminds me of the story of Spawn.
There you go. It's another spirit of vengeance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought about Ghost Rider and Spawn.
Yeah, you'll see it replicated all over the place. But the stories are told in such a different way that you would never really connect it like that until you start really doing some studying. Let's go back to Guardians, right?
Oh, or even the Crow. Somebody else brought up the Crow. Joshua.
The Crow, yeah, the Crow.
Joshua brought up the Crow. Oh, and he brought up Spawn. Awesome.
Yeah, there you go. So here's the thing, right? The thing is, I could pick up a comic book right now today and read about these same ungodly characters, and I can care less. But for some people, it becomes worship. And when I say worship, I don't necessarily mean you bowing down saying, "Oh, Ghost Rider, you're my God." You know, it becomes an obsession because now you're giving all your time, all your money, all your resources to that or those gods. They are literally gods. And I say that, one, because of the mythology, and two, because the comic book fans also say this. When Man of Steel came out, because I didn't understand this before, until Man of Steel. I was going around and looking at reviews and people just commentating, and all I would hear is these gods are going to be boxing it out, and I'm like, why do you keep calling them gods? You know, it started to irritate me. And then I started doing some searching. I'm like, oh my gosh, no. You know?
You know, you were talking about these being written for kids, you know, that were fodder. And I think it was Gon Shimura who made a point in one of his videos. He does lots of videos on, like, you know, the singularity and transhumanism and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one. There's no way I could remember. But he made a point. I think it was him. I hope I didn't get this wrong. But he made the point that whether or not it's possible to achieve, like, right, yeah, you and I aren't even arguing about this. It's just like, but for the world that thinks that what we're talking about is crazy, whether or not it's possible to achieve the singularity, to meld computers with a human brain, or to technologically augment ourselves to the point where we're superhuman, whether or not that's even possible and we'll be able to achieve it, it's irrelevant. If we can convince our kids that it's possible and that it's coming, then their source of they hold out for salvation that is separate from Jesus Christ. You know what I'm saying? Because then the salvation that they hope for, their hope lies in the future and not what's ever present and offered by Jesus Christ through the Holy Spirit. So I thought that was an amazing point that he made, because it's so true. Whether or not it's even possible to achieve what we're talking about, it doesn't matter if we're able to. Kids think that it will be.
Oh, let me. Oh man, I have 3 points, and I hope I don't forget all of them. But what you're saying right now was this. What I'm about to say to you was just revealed to me because I went back to Genesis. Okay, and so of course you know this in the Garden of Eden, the devil beguiled Eve or fooled her to believe that she has the right to go eat that fruit and disobey what God says, you know, break his law and eat it. And in that, you would have become like a god, right? Okay. So right then, God is like, okay, I'm going to throw down judgment, but I'm not going to kill y'all. But I'm going to put a barrier between you guys and the tree of life. There's going to be a flaming sword and an angel. So that's one. So now we have the incursion in Genesis 6. And God's like, I cannot strive with man. I regret what I've done. And so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw down judgment. And then the flood came. That's 2. So after that, the Tower of Babel is built by Nimrod and his people. And God comes down. He's like, I can't. What? You know, I mean, of course he knows. But he's illustrating it for us in the book. God came down, and said anything they put their mind to, they're going to do. It won't be impossible. Hear me. It will not be impossible. Anything. 3. Now you go into the book of Revelation, and what are we doing? Coming together as a one world government, one world economic system, and one world religion. Because in the Bible, he confounded the languages. And so we got Portuguese, we got English, we got all this stuff, right?
Like how the first one is Portuguese. So we got where we got Portuguese from.
Yeah, all these languages, right? And to my account, not my account, but what I've read, there since going back in history, there's been 7,000 languages. Pretty cool that it's 7. Perfection, right? Whatever, right? So now you have Babelfish, you have a couple other technology companies that are working on universal translators. I heard from the Internet of Things conference that Babelfish has this app now or something that it could translate 40 languages in real time. Real time.
Yeah. Well, even those robots, those new police robots that they're rolling out on the streets of Dubai, those speak like 7 or 8 languages. You can talk to the robot and it translates them automatically.
Yeah, there you go. So we're coming back. We're coming to an age now where we can all basically it's not commonplace yet, but we're going to get to a point where we're going to be able to translate and talk one language, one code, and be under one spirit again. And we'll be able to do whatever we want to do, and it won't be impossible. Whatever we put our mind to. When Jesus Christ comes back, the man is going to turn their weapons on him. He's going to squash it quickly, but they're going to turn their weapons on him. So leave us alone. We want to do what we want to do.
Yeah. Revelation 19:19.
There you go. So even this part right here, the part about them turning their weapons on God, it goes into the superhero scenario. Remember, always keep it in a Gnostic vibe. Always keep it that way.
Like Blade Runner. It's like Blade Runner.
Yeah, that's where you're going to start to understand this stuff. The Avengers, they're gods, literally. If you want to count Iron Man out, you could try, but he's like Tesla, in a modern, right? And this threat comes through a portal. It's something that is going to amaze man when it comes through, and we're going to be like, "What? Save us!" And what do? They turn their weapons on this unknown force, right? That's 1. Transformers 4. Was it 4? No, 3. Transformers 3. You have these sentient robots, which Optimus Prime is really a figure of Jesus. Remember, anytime it's a figure of Jesus like that, it's always an Antichrist, right? He gets together to defeat Megatron and not Rodimus, but anyway, the other dude, the other Prime, that's trying to open this portal so that Cybertron can come through. So they defeat it by closing the portal and blowing up Cybertron and defeating Megatron and all this other stuff. But in Gnosticism, Metatron is a figure of God. How did the Autobots come to Earth? At least in this incarnation, they fell out the sky like angels, like fallen angels.
Well, because Metatron was Enoch's angelic state once he was metaphysically translated. He had 72 wings. He was given 72 wings, and Enoch became Metatron according to some Gnostic doctrine.
And there you go, right? So I could give you other references, but there's always some portal, some being that these superhuman, even in the Super Friends and stuff, they got what's the dude out there, Darkseid. He's like a god, and when he comes down, he's gonna rain down fire. It's all about crushing the wrath of God, or what some people call the apocalypse. When all apocalypse means is the unveiling of who Jesus Christ really is. That's what apocalypse means. But within that book,
it sounds so much nicer if you just use the definition, the unveiling of Jesus Christ and who he is. And in reality, it's like the process of unveiling Jesus Christ, though, is going to be brutal.
Yeah, well, and for that state, it's, well, you know, doctrinally, you could swing back and forth on this, you know, whichever side you land. But it's that whole thing is to basically get Israel right, and so they can be who they're supposed to be, you know. And finally, they realize, oh, yes, he's the Messiah, you know.
Instead of a bunch of dirty black magic practicing Kabbalists today, you know. Jeez.
Yeah. So this word apocalypse has been used so much to deteriorate the whole meaning of it, because for us, the unveiling of who Jesus Christ is a wonderful thing. We have that hope. The world doesn't. So every time the world says apocalypse, the post-apocalyptic world, the post-apocalyptic world is going to be the millennial reign of Jesus Christ. That's the post-apocalyptic world. It's not going to be a disastrous world. We're going to replenish the whole thing. So why are we looking at these desolate environments? Because that's what man without Christ is going to look like. You know what I mean? If you look at the movie Armageddon, right? It's about stopping the wrath of God from hitting the planet. Isn't there a meteor coming called Wormwood?
I kind of thought it was just a love story about Bruce Willis's daughter and Ben Affleck.
No, man.
Liv Tyler and Ben Affleck. I don't think you get it. I don't think you got it. Then you need to watch it again.
It's a good movie, but you know, it's just these themes are there. Now we're talking about Gnosticism. All right, let me bring up a couple Gnostic movies that, you know, we mentioned a few earlier. Think about, and anybody out there seen The Giver?
No, I read the book.
All right, so who do you think was the good guy?
Well, the only two real characters that I remember was the actual giver himself, and then you had the boy who received his abilities.
Okay.
And then you had his family that didn't understand what was going on, and he went on the fritz, you know. So I guess, I mean, it would have been the giver would have been the good guy, but he was passing on knowledge, though.
You're hitting it on the head, but you're not saying it, right?
Right.
The giver was the guy that would give you the gnosis.
Gnosis, yeah.
You would open that third eye.
Who wrote that book? Did they have an occultic background? I've never even thought about the giver in the context of Gnosticism.
Yes. And think about the person that was over them. The person that was over them was like some ruler that was like demanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's God.
That makes sense. I get it. I see that. I never even have ever thought about the giver, though, as symbolic of Lucifer giving knowledge. Yeah, but he did, because that was the first, at least in the book. I know they made a movie. I haven't seen the movie, but that, you know, when the kid sees the apple turn red midair, you know, and he couldn't, was that in the movie?
I think so, yeah. I saw the movie, yeah.
And he couldn't explain what changed. You know, he couldn't explain. He just knew something was different about the apple, you know, and it was that was probably the first time, because I actually read that book in junior high where I had to think about, oh, how would you describe color? You know, and it was this passing on of knowledge that you could only experience, but you couldn't explain, you know?
Yeah. Now think about this. You just said you couldn't explain the color, right?
Right.
There's a movie that came out in I think the early 2000s somewhere called Pleasantville.
I remember that. It was horrible. Such a bad movie, but I saw it.
Yeah. So they go inside the TV set, right? And this guy was telling them the rules, right? And every time they broke the rules, it got colorful. Why?
True. I can't argue, man. I can't argue. because every time they broke the rules, things got better in the town.
Yeah, it's like Adam and Eve. Basically, it's breaking all the chains, setting you free from the authority of God, because the guy in the television set, it's God. Now think about this one, the Truman Show.
Christoph and the Moon.
the dude up controlling the TV.
Christoph. Yeah.
Yeah, he's God.
Yeah,
Truman.
Christ. That was, because his name was Christoph, and the way it was spelled was Christ off. And he was in the moon, and he controlled Truman's life. And I remember there was more to it. But on the boat that Truman was on as he was headed out towards the barrier, I think it was there was a psalm that was listed on the flag, on the sail. And it was I think it was Psalm 138 or Psalm 139. And I don't remember, but I actually went back. I looked that up, and it was, I don't know, the whole movie had an alternative theme to it for sure. So,
yeah. Am I here? Because I just got a call. Sorry.
No, you're cool. Yeah, it was, see, what was it? It was Christoph was in the moon. It was Christ off. And then he had Truman, the true man, and he was seeking independence from his creator. And at the end, what did he do? He was at the door. God was talking to him, saying, no, you can stay here with me. And he chose outer darkness. He walked. It was very deliberate. He chose the outer darkness to close the door, and he left. He left God's created environment for him as the true man, and he left. He walked into outer darkness because he preferred outer darkness to what God had created for him. So
exactly. Now think about this one. A lot of people have seen this movie, and a lot of people wear the face in this movie that represents the devil. V for Vendetta. V for Vendetta.
Oh yeah, Guy Fawkes.
Yeah, it's not about us going against the New World Order. It's not about that. The person running the New World Order in that movie is God. The guy that's taking the young lady and teaching her all this gnosis, knowledge, is the devil. And he sets her free from all of the bondage that she was caught up in. She was liberated. She's now a new person. And so that mask that the truthers like to wear.
Yeah, I know, dude. Guy Fawkes, I know. I won't wear one. I almost bought one time because they're like, oh, that's so cool. And then I thought about it for 5 seconds, and I was like, nope, that story wasn't what I...
Yeah. So, I'm telling you, listen, this stuff is so deep. And I'm still finding out new stuff. I'm going to throw one at you about video games right now. And it's gonna sound really, really off base and crazy, but trust me, from the evidence I've seen, and I can't show it now because I don't have a clip to give you.
What's the video game?
It's a couple of them, but they all go by the same theme. And one of them is not a video game. Did Popeye have a video game?
Popeye?
Yeah.
I could have been. I don't know. I've never seen it.
I think they might have had one, but that's not the issue. So you have Popeye. You got Mario. You got Pac-Man.
Yeah, that's my party hat. You see, Tom hates his hat, so whenever he's gone, I get to wear my Mario hat. So don't hate on Mario too much, because if I found out it's like Lucifer, well, then this Bowser Dragon character, it's gonna,
It's all good, man. We do a lot of things out of ignorance. Then we got Zelda, right? Zelda, Mario, Pac-Man, and Popeye have a woman in distress. All of them use something to get superhuman or supernatural powers.
Like
mushrooms. Pac-Man,
like mushrooms.
Right? Mushrooms, power pellets, spinach, and what is Zelda's power? He gets a magic shield and some other stuff because he uses the Triforce. So when you get all of the sword, the shield, and the gems, you become a god or a messenger of the god or whatever. So anyway, it's flipped upside down because the bondage that all of the princess and olive oil and all this stuff get into, that's really not the bondage that you think it is, because Mario, Popeye, Zelda, and Pac-Man are actually the same thing about setting someone free from that bondage that you think is going on, but it's really Satan. A caricature anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, and I'm sure you get a lot more research there too. So that's. Yeah. Is there a story? There's a story behind Pac-Man?
I believe they did make a story, but I probably couldn't figure it out right now if I tried.
Well, what was the goal of Pac-Man? Because I've never spent much time playing Pac-Man. I just thought it was just like, oh, we have a game where this yellow mouth eats dots.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a simple idea, but this. All right, let me give you one.
But I mean, that's where I'm asking you. You're gonna know because I don't. Is the goal of Pac-Man
you're
was
asking.
to set
Okay.
Miss Pac-Man free?
Yeah, it's always to basically eat the dots to get through the maze, but you got to kill all the supernatural spirits.
Right.
And Miss Pac-Man is, I think she might have been caged somewhere. I can't remember because I haven't played in a while. But you had Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man, and some other stuff going on. But the whole story is not really the thing I'm harping on here. It's really the concept, the continual concept. And the reason why I could say some of this without showing you a video is because Nintendo, which means I think something from heaven or something like that, because they're built off of Shintoism, and Shintoism believes that they are the descendants of the gods. You understand?
Yeah,
So,
I'm tracking. I didn't know that though. I'm looking that up because that's interesting.
Yeah. So
keep talking.
So Nintendo wanted to borrow Popeye, and since they couldn't, they made Mario. So they were already taking that idea. They just put another character there, put the princess, and put Bowser there, the dragon, that is always continually stealing her from him. But that was the idea. But there's more. For me to make the whole case, there's more information. But I want to just touch on some more stuff before we finish. But
it says that the common assumption is that Nintendo means leave luck to heaven or even to leave one's fortune in the hands of fate. Oh, then it cut me off, so I have to click on it. I thought I was going to get to the meaning. I don't know. They could be lying too. Does that match up? Is that? Hold on a second.
Yeah. It's something like that.
Oh, it's making me read a whole article to get there.
Yeah.
Keep talking. I'm still reading this.
And some of the stuff that I talked about is actually a video. It's not like an article. It's on video. So if people want to look that up, but because Nintendo, they don't really talk about their secrets too much, So
it says it's plausible. They made it sound like it wasn't true, but they said that that Hiroshi Yamauchi, the great-grandson of the company's founder, has admitted that he does not know the true meaning of the company's name, saying that to leave one's fortune in the hands of fate was a plausible explanation.
Yeah. Well, I've seen two loose translations, and
because the other one had to do with heaven. Yeah.
So now if you go into oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you something earlier. About Iron Fist, but you know what? Let me just go into this.
I see that's a Netflix show. I didn't know any. I don't know anything about Iron Fist.
The only reason I'm telling you is because it goes into the same thing with the Force. That's how he uses his power to. That's what the Iron Fist is. So you can leave that one right there. But okay. So in Shintoism, there's a god. It's a fox, and it has a tail. It has either one tail, and sometimes it has 3 tails. No, sorry, up to 9 tails. And the characters that are made from this same fox is Star Fox, the video game.
Mm-hmm.
You have Sonic, which is a mixture of that fox, the god, and the god Hermes or the Flash. It's a mixture of both.
Mixture of Hermes and who? You cut out for a second.
Hermes, which is also the Flash. And
right.
Fox character I'm telling you about. I can't remember his name right now. You can look it up. Fox, Shintoism, Fox God or whatever.
Okay.
And then you have in Zelda Majora's Mask, there's also a fox there with the same tail, and you get to put on the fox mask. You become that whatever character. So, I mean, this stuff is through and through in anime, in video games. It's all over the place, and it has a lot of Gnosticism intertwined in there too. So, if parents are able to at least do a little research into some of the stuff, then they're able to, guide their children or teenagers sometimes. I remember there was a commercial for Halo 4, I believe. And they had John, some scripture was the name of the character. And
John 117. That's
Right.
He's
And
John 1:17. That's a scripture? No way. Dude, you're blowing my mind. I didn't ever even thought about looking up the scripture. Hold on.
Yeah.
I've played every ounce of Halo there is to play. I was the master of LAN parties in high school with Halo 1. I had a 16-port hub. We would have 10 to 16 TVs going at any one time. That was a game that defined half my life. And now you're telling me something that I've never even thought about.
I'm gonna hit you with some more in a second. Since we're on Halo,
John, but I got to look this up. It's John 1:1. So John 1:17 or John 11:7?
I think it's 1:17. I don't have it in front of me, so it's just coming from memory right now.
Well, we got to track this because this is interesting. John 1:17 says, "For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ." I don't know if that would apply. Let's go to 11:7.
Yeah, it's 1:17. John 1:17.
Then it said, then 7 says, then after he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." That's it. I don't know. All right, keep talking. I don't know how those apply. But
here's the thing. The commercial had nothing to do with the game. Nothing. And you had giant dragons, mechanical dragons coming out of the ground and other suspicious things. But here's the part I hone into more than the rest is that there were two of them fighting each other and one defeated the other. So it's like a Christ against the Antichrist. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you go back and look at that commercial, you'll see what I'm talking about. And look at the symbolism in it. You know what I mean?
Wait, even the in Halo, like in Halo 4, your enemy. Well, number one. Oh, you know what's interesting, dude? Oh, dude, I've never even thought about this. Your primary enemy in Halo up until number 4 is the Covenant.
Yeah.
The Covenant.
Yeah.
And then you go to war with the Prometheans.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Which, when you look at the mythology behind, I don't know why I never even looked at that.
Wait. Before I even go there, let me backtrack. Right? The whole universe of Halo, it's built off of the aliens seeding the planet. You have to go and get the Halo special DVD they came out with.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look up the name in a second. But this is what the story is. They had a race of aliens, and they built this gigantic machine to destroy and replenish, to start over, because of, I don't know if it's because of the flood or something else, right? And they built the weapon, but first they had to go and get, different samples from off the different planets up to preserve it. And then they let loose the weapon, the Halo, and then what they did was go back to each planet and seed each planet, seed them all to start over. So now that we've gone to whatever year it is that we build spaceships to go out into space, we start meeting up with these other races until we find our creators.
Dude, my friend Tyson, he just texted me. He was like, I guess he's watching live. He was like, the flood, bro. Because in Halo, one of your primary enemies, too, was the flood. It's the flood in the Covenant. Dude, it was the flood in the Covenant, and I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, they take stuff out of the Bible. Listen, Alien Covenant that just came out. Let me tell you what it's all about. All right, in Prometheus, you went to a planet that had 3 pyramids on it, that had a spore that would ravage your DNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but you had the builders there, whatever they're called, can't remember the name right now, and they turned on man at the end. They're disgusted with us.
Yeah, you're talking about Ridley Scott's
Prometheus,
the one that just I'm with you. I just make sure I was with you. Yeah.
So by the end of the movie, the artificial dude, David, and the woman, they go to see where these people came from, where our creators came from. So here in Alien Covenant, the only one we see there that ended up on the planet was David. What did David do? Did you see the movie?
Yeah, but it's been a while. Was David the android?
Right, but did you see Alien Covenant? The new one.
Oh, not the new one. Dude, I haven't been in the movies in a long time.
And look at the name, Covenant again, right? He goes and unleashes death on his creators, well, our creators.
Oh, spoiler alert, bro! Spoiler alert!
Sorry. I gotta tell him. He unleashes death. Okay, so basically, this is what the movie is all about. Of artificial life, which is basically a space Lucifer, goes and kills God, and then he starts a new Eden on the planet, which our stupid behinds go to find out to start a new civilization. And what's on there is no life except for these xenomorphs.
Yeah, who are cold and have no emotions, and they're just perfect killers.
Right, but they're not the perfect one yet. They're just an offspring from whatever happened before. So David, who is really Lucifer, creates a perfect human killing machine. And then this is where the original alien come from. That's why, whatever they're doing.
Right.
One of the person talks about his faith or whatever, but they don't really say if he's a Christian or not, just kind of vaguely says it. And he lures them in there and all hell breaks loose, But and his whole goal is to wipe out humanity. What is Satan's goal?
To wipe out humanity, take every soul to hell with him.
There you go. Now Ridley Scott, he uses all sorts of pagan iconography to build his stories.
Which he drew a lot of that inspiration from Geiger. Which, if you research Geiger was nuts.
Exactly. I think possessed, but the wings on the oh my gosh, the person that sent them out there, I can't remember his name. There's a wing on the suits. It was in Prometheus too. I went to the extra DVDs, the bonus DVDs.
Yeah.
Check it out, and the artist was like, they were taking inspiration from Horus to put the wings there. I saw it with my own two eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh, really? So, if you say that without giving the backup, people think, oh, you're just making it up,
They say that in the extras. They say that in the extras of the DVD.
Yeah. Anyone could go rent it, and it's about 6 hours long or whatever. But that's what's going on. So again, Gnosticism is always there, complete and through and through. So video games, books, your entertainment. I got to say this before we go. We've been talking about false gods, demigods, and all this other stuff. A lot of your rappers, some of your singers too, they believe they're gods, right?
Yeah.
There's a sect of Islam called 5%ers, and they have what you call arm, leg, arm, head, which spells out Allah, right? It's the belief that you get knowledge of self, basically enlightenment of who you are and all this other stuff. They believe that they're literally gods, and that they have the nation of gods and earth. The earths are the women. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So a lot of these rappers and neo soul singers, they're singing and rapping about them being God or something related to that all the time. I remember Rakim, my third eye makes me shine like jewelry. It's one of his raps. He says, I'm God. G's the seventh letter made. You find that in masonry. Yeah. This stuff is everywhere. I'm trying to tell you.
Well, so, even the proof of these rappers coming out, and I actually have a video downloaded. I'm looking at it on my desktop right now. It's Ali Vegas talking about how if you want to make it in the rap industry, you go to these parties and things happen, and he seemed to be talking about sexual magic, and anytime you that's come from so many people involved in the rap industry. To make it, you have to get involved in these rituals. And eventually, it's like something that's always kind of bothered me is that when Justin Bieber got the owl tattoo on his arm, and some would say that it goes back to Aphrodite, really, and that's interesting to see there might actually be something of that owl actually being traced back to Aphrodite, but because there's a sexual component a lot of times with those rituals that involve the owl, everybody draws upon the 40-foot stone owl at Bohemian Grove as being representative of Molech, but there might be some deeper levels of complexity there. 100% sure, and I've been wanting to explore that more, so I won't talk about it too much for fear of my own ignorance. But it seemed like when Justin Bieber was coming up, he ended up getting that owl tattoo, and it reminded me, he wasn't in the rap industry, but there's anytime, at least personally, it seems, this is my opinion at this point, that anytime you see the owl, you're involved in some serious, like, there's a lot of sexual magic that's going on there too.
Yeah.
And like sexual magic merged with human sacrifice. That seems to be the key components to it. Not just the sacrificing of children, but there's a sexual component to the sacrifice. So I posted a picture on my Facebook the other day of an owl, I think it was in Alaska, that killed 70 lemmings and used the lemmings as the nesting material for its nest, right? Used the carcasses of the lemmings for the nesting material of its nest. And I just kind of made a little statement on Facebook, and I was like, there's a reason why they built a 40-foot stone owl at Bohemian Grove, and it's not because it's cute. You know what I'm saying? I mean, here you have...
Yeah.
And when Justin Bieber got that tattoo of the owl on his forearm, it just took me back. What did he get involved with? And it wasn't necessarily Bohemian Grove, but what did he get involved with? Because you see those kinds of tattoos showing up on rappers all over the place too, and you hear their testimonies of, well, if you're going to make it, we ended up, they have to do things they don't want to do sexually with other men, homosexual things, and it's just, I don't know, dude, it's crazy. You're right.
Yeah, I sat down with a A&R from Warner Brothers one time, and we asked a question, because at that time the stuff was going about who's the gay rapper. That was going on for like a decade. Who's the gay rapper? And so we posed a question and asked him who in the music industry was, gay. And he said, we're not going to call it that. We're going to call it politics. And he named a few names, and one of them was Jay-Z and Busta Rhymes and a couple other ones. But he said that Ice Cube didn't play politics. So, I interviewed him, asking him questions. That's what he told me. Whether it's true or not, only they know. But I'm just trying to tell you, that's what he told me. Yeah. And I believe him, because a lot of that stuff goes on. But back to the God issue, you have Jay-Z. You remember the picture that of him at the I think a Lakers game or something, where he had a medallion on? Well, it was
Jay-Z
right next to Beyonce. Yeah, and it had a 7 in it. Well, that's a sign of the 5% nation. And
I know that.
They hate white people. They say white people are the devil. So he basically makes shucking and jiving with people that he hates, because they literally hate y'all.
Yeah.
Go and look into their doctrine. It's nothing nice.
Well, does that tie into like the Boule Society, which is sort of like the Black Masons? Is that?
I don't think so. I mean, they could possibly be in there. I wouldn't doubt it, because.
But you think that like the 5%ers and like the Boule would it?
Well, you see, the 5%ers are Islam.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm with you.
Masonry, they take anybody.
Yeah.
Until you reach a certain level, then you're like, yo, you got to bow down to Lucifer. So.
Or go to Europe so you can rise to more levels.
Yeah, all that stuff. So the reason I brought up music along with all this stuff is, the flood of evil within all of these genres or categories, it's heavy. And I was the type of dude that went to school with the headphones on my ear every day.
Yeah.
Unless my tape recorder was broken or I had no batteries. So I was inundated with that stuff. From EPMD, LL Cool J, all the way up to Eminem and DMX and all these people. I stopped listening to hip hop in 2006, the end of 2006. Okay, that was my last hit. And let me just give a quick testimony about my dealings with it as far as demonic stuff. I was listening to a lot of Liquid Swords, the Jizza, part of Wu-Tang Clan, right? And I would go to sleep with it every night. But in that time, I started going back to church, you know? And so certain nights, I would start getting held down. Like, what is going on? I never had an experience like this, you know? What is going on? And I would ignore it, and then it started happening every now and then way too frequently, like every other night, you know? And I was getting scared and spooked, you know? So I would ask church people, you know, oh, you're giving the devil too much credit. I'm like, what? You know, this is happening.
Yeah.
And so I just prayed to God. I said, hey.
You were held down like sleep paralysis, but you dealing like hag syndrome stuff too, like pressure on your chest?
Yeah. And not only just that, I knew when it was 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? I knew when it was 1, 1. So I prayed to God, and I was like, you know, what is going on? I'm praying to you. I'm scared, whatever I said that night. And I don't know if it was like a day later, or a week later, 3 days later that I got an answer. But basically, I had a dream, and the record from the Gravediggers, which is another part of Wu-Tang, started playing, and then the record started skipping. It was Diary of a Mad Black Man. That was the name of the record. And it started skipping, and a voice said, it's the music that you're listening to while these things are happening. And only thing I know from there is I only had one shot. Because the last time it happened, I felt them holding my feet and my hands. And through my spiritual eye, I could see one manifest behind my door, but in black smoke, like you've seen in the movies. And I just yelled out, Jesus. It was a struggle to yell it out, because, you know, sleep paralysis is kind of hard. And it just, Jesus, and they flew out, left.
Yeah, that's a typical story. That's spot on. Yeah, have you ever heard of the Tavistock Institute? TW Rubs in the comments says, that's something I'm interested in looking more into. And we don't have time to talk about them tonight, but there's also
there's a PDF online. You could download it. Tavistock. It's all about the Tavistock Institute. You'll find it quick. It's really good.
Do you mind sending me a link sometimes so I can be lazy about it? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, sure thing.
Do you see? I mean, I know we can keep going and going and going and going. It's so interesting. There's so much there. I know there's so much there. Before I forget this, real quick, before we start really closing out, I guess John. I don't know John Pounders that well. I like Now You See TV, and I like him. I think their setup over there is cool. I guess they're getting he's having problems with his internet provider, and so they're being forced to relocate their broadcasting, according to TW Rubs in the comments. So yeah, if you guys could pray for Now You See TV and what's going on over there, because they reach a lot of people, and it really stinks when internet gets in the way of being able to read. Like, my internet goes down. We don't have nearly the audience that they do, and that really stinks sometimes in doing videos. So pray for them. Pray that they get things figured out and that it'll work out for the betterment of Now You See TV. And we certainly have appreciated them. They've had us on several times, and we're actually going to be doing their show, their David Carrico's show on Saturday night, the Midnight Ride, I think is what they call it. We're going to end up doing their show on the 24th, I think, which would be really cool. But Chris, where can people find your broadcasts and stuff? Like when they want to go, because we need more people listening to Don't Let Them Burn too, and sharing your stuff. So where can they go to find your info?
Well, our website is dontletthemburn.com. You could also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, scene.life, vid.me, Tumblr, Flickr. We're all over the place. But the most important place right now for visibility is Blog Talk Radio and YouTube. YouTube, because what we do sometimes, well, most of the times, is we put the articles in the video so you see that we're telling the truth about everything we're talking about. And we don't add on to it. We just give it raw. Sometimes we read the articles. Last week we covered a ton of stuff with DNA manipulation. It's not up yet. It's coming up this week. We're going to put it up. We had Doc Marquis on the other night, and we have special guests on every now and then we get into our own thing. But you know, a few of the shows that really need some love is Pull Them from the Fire Part 1, 2, and 3. What we talk about in there is all of the music industry, some of the video game stuff, fashion, and some other stuff that it's really geared towards parents and young people that need to hear it. Okay, and then we have a 3-part series on technology. This was last year, but it's still relevant. It's not old at all. And that's some really important information that we cover: transhumanism, DNA, drones, brain control drones, and a whole bunch of stuff we cover in those shows. And we're going to release soon one called The Alien Deception in Movies. I'm working on it, but it's so much to work on that it's taking so long. And we recorded those shows a while back, but they're still relevant. And we give you a lot of stuff we talked about tonight, but we talk about the Black Cube, Saturn, portals, Nephilim.
The Black Cube, that's an interesting. Black Cube and Saturnalia, that's an interesting topic.
And we don't take it out into realms that you can't understand. We put it in front of you so you can really follow the dots to make your own conclusion. So, you know, if you want to find us and send us emails, go to the website, go to the YouTube. I check most of the stuff, and that's how you can find us.
Awesome. Do me a favor, because I'm not that good when it comes to this stuff, but I'm going to post as many links as I can. But any links you want, send them to me in Messenger or something. I will copy them and put them in the Facebook comments or the YouTube comments so everybody can find them. And the guy I'm talking to is Chris Taylor. I know I've been referring to him as don't let him burn guy, but that's because we're not professional at all, and nobody missed his name. I don't think we actually ever gave his full name. So it's Chris Taylor with Don't Let Him Burn. He has a partner, Rory, that was going to be with us, but for some reason didn't show up. And my partner didn't show up. This was going to be a 40-minute show, but since it was me and Chris and I had my party hat on, we said, who cares? Let's talk about movies and have a good time. So anyway, it's good stuff. Chris, send me all the links you want in the comments, and I'll copy them and paste them in there, and we'll try to throw you get some people listening, more people listening to your stuff, because you got a lot of good information. And we appreciate everybody that hung out with us tonight for show. And interesting stuff, dude. You kind of wrecked my world on the Halo thing. I'm not going to lie. I'd never once in my life had I ever applied any brain cells to looking at Halo as anything other than a good time. So
yeah. But that's what they want you to do. They don't want you to question what they're putting together, So,
that's right. You're right, man.
But you know what? I don't want to paint the some of the companies, not all. Some of them I don't want to paint with a dark brush, because what they're really trying to do is take something from here and there and put something together. But they're operating in the spirit of Antichrist that runs this world.
Yeah, that's right. They may not even realize what they're doing, but there's a spirit over it for sure that helps guide the process.
Yeah.
Or they have ideas and they don't know where the ideas came from. So anyway, cool, man. Well, Chris, it was good hanging out with you tonight, man. Too bad it's too late and everybody needs to go to sleep because we've all got. For having me. We'd love to. Do you have a slave job like some of us, or are you like full-time ministry?
It's half and half. I do graphics and I do ministry at the same time.
I was going to say, because I'm like, man, I'm locked down for 10 hours a day, just slaving away. I can't do anything else. Got to ask to go home, that kind of thing. I was just wondering if you were free and clear doing ministry nonstop. So
that's where I wanted to go one day, but we'll see what happens.
All right, dude. We'll talk to you later, buddy. Everybody else, we'll see you when we see you. Peace.
If you like our videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get all our frequent updates.